Trigger on! Okay, so I don't know if I'm the only one, but I had no idea that World Trigger was going to be on break last week until after 5:30 passed when I normally watch the episode. It did not air, and I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? I was waiting for the episode and all that. I was getting hyped up to watch World Trigger, and it didn't even air. And I'm like, I'm actually a big fan of this series. I'm starting to really like this series as it progresses episode by episode. As you know, I'm an anime-only watcher, but I'm really enjoying the anime series. And when it was on break last week, I'm like, I was pretty freaking mad. This episode really, I'm growing quite fond of this series. As it progresses, I'm growing more and more attached to World Trigger by the week. I really, really hope that this series will be an ongoing show that will last past 24 episodes to 12 episodes. I really want this series to become a long-running series, because, honestly, let's go figure. We have a lot of long-running shonen ending very soon. For instance, Naruto's ending. We have a bunch of other shonen that's ended. And so, I want to actually see, you know, World Trigger actually do good and be animated properly and probably be a long-running series. But for one thing, we get a lot of character development or characterization for Kitora. We get to find out more about her, and we get to see exactly how her true personality is. As you know from my last review 2 weeks ago, I pretty much called Kitora a bitch-chan. For instance, I was just calling her a bitch because I didn't like her attitude. My first impressions of her was pretty, you know, raunchy, because I just didn't like her. The way she acted towards Osamu actually saving people, and the way she was just getting very jelly over Osamu getting praised, I was kind of mad with that. I really was. But seeing how she kind of opened up a little bit and stopped being such a stern soldier, I was actually satisfied with this episode. I really was. It's actually showing more into her character development, and I noticed something very interesting about her character that kind of reminded me of One Piece. Now, I don't know if anyone else knows what I'm about to say, but if you watch One Piece, most likely you'll know the reference. Where you had to where Kitora was saying, you should call me son. Kitora, son. I instantly fought back to Virgo. I'm like, Virgo, is that you? Female form? Virgo, what are you doing? What are you doing to World Trigger, Virgo? No! Or that's Virgo's daughter. Long lost daughter through different series. Possibly, because I mean, that's exactly what Virgos say. Virgo's son. So anyways, past that entire bit, this episode really, I like the personality of Kitora. More she was fleshed out this episode, the more I began to like her, and honestly, she just seems to be one of those type of characters that is like a tsundere. That's exactly what she is. That's what I can see from her personality, and I guess I can be fine with that. As long as if she doesn't get overbearing with her personality being stuck up with her entire goals and as a soldier and stuff, like a border agent, I think I'll be fine. Now, the animation of this episode of World Trigger, I'm just gonna be straight out honest. You know, as we already know, if you've been watching World Trigger since the first episode, there's no denying that the animation is not the best. We would be lying to ourselves if we said this was fucking epic animation. But personally, I'm looking past the animation for the story. I've actually looked over a lot of animation because of stories when it comes to different anime, and that's exactly what I'm doing for World Trigger. Personally, World Trigger, as I can see, has a very good and unique story to tell that I'm very interested in. I'm actually getting engaged with this series and I want to know more. And so, personally, the animation for the most part is the same as how it has been since the very first episode. Not as much still frames as the first episode, but still, the animation is still the same as ever. So if you hate the animation, most likely you're going to hate the animation once again in this week's episode. Now, for the most part, we get to see a little bit of Kouga's characterization in this episode. Like, he completely calls out Kitora right at the beginning of this episode and, like, snaps at her and makes fun of her, saying, he's like, oh yeah, if Osamu didn't activate his trigger, yeah, I would have died and everybody else would have died from the neighbors. So that was a really cool, interesting twist, the way Kouga actually just smack-talked Kitora in the face, pretty much, because he's like, don't you think you're actually stealing the triggers from neighbors? I was like, oh, that's a low blow, because, I mean, border agents, you know, as we know, they got their trigger technology from the neighbors, and when you had it to where how Kitora was saying, you need to get, you know, permission from border to use your triggers, and when Kouga popped around and says, oh, so do you need to contact the neighbors every time you use your triggers? Like, oh, dude, Kouga, man, I love Kouga. I'm growing quite fond of his character. His character is amazing. His little dirt face, oh, his dirt face, man. It is the best. It is the best, man. His dirt face is fucking amazing. I'm sorry, I can't get over that dirt face. That face needs to be, like, put in a picture frame. It's 10 out of 10 material, dirt face. But anyways, overall, wonderful episode of World Trigger. I'm very hyped up for next week's episode. Hopefully we don't have a freaking break out of nowhere. I mean, I understand, you know, Toei Animation, different studios have to take a break to do stuff and have to make, you know, different episodes to catch up with the schedule or whatever, or it could have been a holiday. Most likely, if I had to guess, it was probably a holiday, and that's why we didn't have World Trigger last week. But either way, hopefully we don't have an unannounced break this upcoming weekend. So tell me your thoughts in the comments below. I love you all so much. You have a wonderful day or night wherever you live. Please be safe. Chibi out.